So, hello guys, and welcome to a video, hopefully a new line, a new series of videos on the wonderful game Bushido. So, this is a game that has piqued my interest at Salou just gone. I was fortunate enough to get a demo there by the guys from GCT Studios who make the game. So I'm going to do a series hopefully. I've had a look on YouTube and there's not much content out there. Be it match reports or talking through the game, so I'm planning on doing a series that goes through sort of a beginner's guide to Bushido, some match reports following the exploits of me and some of my buddies who have just picked up the game. So if you're interested, please comment, share, like and subscribe to these videos, and I should have some more content out for you soon. So into the game. So Bushido. This is a sort of a feudal Japan style, a little bit of fantasy, a little mythical game, and it's a tabletop miniatures game, and it's a small sort of skirmish fantasy style game based around Japan, or Japan-esque. It is tends to be between sort of 5 and 15 models, and there is this lovely rulebook that I've picked up. I will show you some close-ups of the artwork in here. It's an absolutely beautiful game. So, it's got samurai, it's got ninjas, it's got animals, it's got loads of cool stuff like that. The things that has drawn it to my attention is the low model count, the low sort of buy-in price. It's played on a 2x2, 2 foot by 2 foot table. So it's a tiny little table. As you can see in front of me, this is just slightly bigger than 2x2. It's an old poker table, but I had this lying around, so it fits perfectly on this sort of table. It's fit on most people's coffee tables, really. So size is an amazing thing. It also allows some lovely space for modelling, for building your boards. It's not a huge area that you need, like some other systems. The models, that was the main thing that drew me in. The models are gorgeous. I saw some of the professionally painted ones at Salou and they were just absolutely stunning. And the core mechanics, it's got a really interesting set of mechanics, some of which I've not really seen before. It's got alternating activations, so it's you activate a model, I activate a model, you activate a model. I quite like that. From a sort of a Malifaux and Guild Ball background that I have, that is something that really intrigues me. I quite like that idea. And it's also got, when you're playing, you'll see in future videos, the non-active player also takes part in combat and things like that, so you're always sort of engaged with the game, which is fantastic. The background, in the fluff in the rulebook is amazing. They put a lot of effort into that. So I'll go through some of the factions and things like that. We have currently, I think there are 8 or 10 factions in the game. There is the Prefector of Ryu is the first faction. So they're sort of the main ruling body of the Jwa Isles, which is where this game is set. As like Japan, it's set around loads of little islands. So the Prefector of Ryu, they're sort of samurais. So that's pretty cool. So up on screen I'll put some models up so you can see here some of the models. This is the starter box. As I mentioned, it's quite a low buy-in, so there's you buy these starter boxes for about 30 English pounds. You get 5 or so models. Most games are between 35 and 50 rice, and each model has a rice cost, and some of the more expensive in-game models are sort of 13, 14 rice. So you'll have, if you could take expensive models for a 50 rice game, you'll have about 5 models, or they go all the way down to sort of 3 or 2 rice, and you can have slightly more models. Another cool mechanic I like about the game, talking about the model count, is that if you have less models than your opponent in the start of the turn, you get pass tokens. so you get sort of the same number of activations as your opponent, so there's not really going to be too many times when your opponent has loads and loads of activations at the end of a turn, which can sometimes make things difficult. So that's the Prefector of Ryu. They've got some sort of samurai models, they've got male and female Japanese style models. I'm just looking at sort of a sumo. They have the Savage Wave, so these are kind of the bad guys, these are the chaos sort of style faction, and they're sort of off-world. I won't spoil too much of the fluff for you guys if you're interested in looking at it, but they've got little sort of goblin-y, big monster beast sort of style, so they're your like heavy hitters. And then we have the Temple of Rokan, so this is sort of the monks of the game, and they just want to bring the world back into balance. So they have lots of elemental stuff. They've got fire, wind, water, as you'd imagine. They've got quite a connection to animals, so a lot of their models have animals, and they're monks, so they've got sort of orange robes, meditation. Then you've got the Cult of Yuri, and these are also sort of the bad guys, a bit like the Savage Wave, and these kind of undead style, resurrected people, hard to kill, lots of corpses, a lot of sort of nightmare models. Plays on the sort of the mythology of Japan. They've got sort of a rat king guy. So they are cool. Again, you'll see up on screen, these are the start boxes, and these come to about I think 36 rice, so you can jump straight in and play a full game with these guys. Next up we have the Ito clan, and these are like a snake, half human style faction. So there's some pretty cool models in here. Here's the start box up on screen, and then there's not in the book, but these have been added on. There's the Silver Moon Syndicate, so these are like the gangsters. These are the big powerhouse merchants that rule certain areas of the Jawar Isles, so these are kind of underground gambling gangsters, so these are pretty cool. And then a relatively recent faction that's come out is the faction that I've actually picked up, which is the Kage Ninjas. So these are just like a faction of ninjas, so what's not to like? So these are amazing. The models for these are stunning. It's actually a crossover. GCT have also made a sort of board game that was showed off at Salute as well, and these are models that you can use in the game as well. So I've picked up 8 of those models, one of which can also play for the Prefector of Ryu. And then we have the Jung Pirates. So this is a faction that has not actually been released yet. I'm just trying to find in the book where the factions are listed. So bear with me. But I'll show you pictures. The artwork in the rulebook is amazing. There's only actually about 12 pages of core rules, and then the rest is just fluff and background. So there's a really great amount of work that's gone into this rulebook. It's relatively reasonably priced, so that's amazing. So we've got the Jung Pirates. These used to be a major clan, but they were sort of ostracised and forced away when there was a great battle. We also have the Tengu, so again building on mythology and things. This is like the bird people, so these are sort of samurai birds, so these are cool. The Minamoto, another faction which are like bears, they're mountain bears. They're really into their mining and I guess a bit like dwarves, so these are like metal craft, dwarfy style, but again these haven't been released, so these are future factions that will be released. I think they've got quite a good release schedule. GCT, I think they release a couple of models every month for each faction, so that's cool just to add flavour. The other thing that drew me to this is at the moment there's a relatively low model count across the whole game, so there's not a huge amount of stuff to collect. And the one thing that kind of put me off Malifaux in the end was that there ended up being such a wide range of models, and there were so many gotcha moments if you didn't know the opponent's models. So there hopefully won't be that much in this. We'll see. I am relatively new to get. I played my first game, proper game this morning, beyond the demo, and that was awesome. So I feel like I've picked up the base mechanics now. 3 of my other mates picked up a starter box, each a different faction at Salute. So we are going to paint those up and get some games played. I'll do some future videos on those, on painting and terrain building and how we're getting on with that. And the last faction mentioned in the rulebook is the Shiho clan, and this was an old, there's a big write-up in the fluff about the dominant Shiho clan that are now sort of underground because they were defeated in a big battle. So I'm excited to see all of these coming forward, going forward, what models they have in line for these. So that's kind of the factions behind it. You might have wondered why this series is called The Trials of the Michi. They've built up the background in the book, in the rulebook, and one of the main religions is Michi in the book, so it was fitting Trials of the Michi. So that's the rulebook. Beautiful to read, even if it's just to read, but it's got all the rules you'll need to play the game in there. So the core mechanics, what I really liked about the game and which drew me in is, it's, as I mentioned, it's I go, you go, so you alternate activations until your model becomes exhausted. I'll go through another beginner's video after this, the next one in the series, which actually talks you through the core mechanics and playing the game. But basically, whenever you do an action, you become tired, and then when you do a further action later on in the turn with that model, they become exhausted. You keep going throughout the turn until both factions, both players have got all their models exhausted, and then you reset and everybody comes back. You also have something called ki in the game, which is, if any of you have played Guild Ball, it's like momentum, but each model gets a certain amount of ki at the start of every turn, and you can then spend that ki on special abilities or adding dice to your dice roll. It's a very clever dice mechanic because you're not rolling handfuls of dice, yet there's loads of little modifiers to add on during your dice rolls and make it interesting. So I'll also go through, on the beginner's guide, I'll go through the stat cards, but each model gets a certain number of dice to attack, a certain number of dice for doing ranged attacks. They've got a movement statistic, they've got this ki as I've mentioned, and then lots of traits and abilities which just add flavour. When you attack somebody in melee, you have opposed dice rolls and you force your opponent to become tired or to increase their resting tired or exhausted level, so you can kind of manipulate the opponent by making them use up some of their actions in effect. And when you do an opposed melee, you both engage in the melee, so you both roll dice at the same time, and you generate your dice pool, and then in secret you decide how many dice you're going to use for attack and how many you use for defend, and then you roll them at the same time, so you don't know what each of them is doing. And then you take your highest dice roll, and then any 2 pluses after that you can add on for a maximum of an extra 2. So you can potentially go to sort of 6, use your highest dice roll, add 1, 7, add another is 8. If you get an additional 6, you could get +2. So there's a range of between sort of 0 and 10. And then you compare your attack to their defence, and then their attack to your defence, and do damage and special abilities accordingly. So that's pretty fun, that hidden mechanic of that. And then you get extra modifiers for when you're in cover or when you're exhausted and things like that. So it's a really cool, that side of it is quite cool, that mechanic. And then once you've decided whether you hit, you determine your success level, and that is just the difference between your roll and your opponent's roll. And then there's a nice damage chart. You roll 2 dice when you're damaging for the most part, unless you have a special ability, and that you then compare that to your success level on this chart, and it tells you how much damage you do. Each model has, again, additional things like armour and toughness where you reduce the damage you do, or special abilities around that. So I really like that sort of mechanic, dice rolling, opposed stuff against each other. So that's A. So we've been through the factions, we've been through a bit of the core mechanics, we've been through the table setup. You only need, I can't remember exactly what it says, but up to about 7 pieces of terrain on this little board, so you don't need a huge amount of terrain either. There's a couple of scenarios, different types. There's 6 scenarios in the book, but they're variations of the same 3. There's a sort of a VIP one where you have an important person on your team and the opponent does as well, and the game is scored by you being able to take out your opponent's model and keep yours safe. The variations are, in one variation you keep them hidden, and then the other variation you nominate your opponents, so that mixes it up a bit. Then there's one where there's 6 markers on the table, objective markers, and you have to turn them to be your markers, and they 2 variations. That one is where they reset, and depending on who controls the most objectives at the end of turn 2 and 4 and so on gets victory points. And then the final one is where there's just 3 objectives in the middle, and again it resets, so it doesn't reset is the variations. So there's that cool scenario base. It's not just about killing stuff and killing your opponent's models, it's all about getting the objectives. There's also models with special abilities to manipulate things like the key you get, manipulate dice rolls of your opponent, special mind powers and things. And as I said, I picked up the 8 ninjas, so they're all quite high cost, they're quite good in the game, so they're all between 9 and 13 points or so I don't get many in a 50 or 35 rice game, but they are quite complicated in what they can do. They've got some really cool abilities. You don't have to just damage models, you can like sweep the leg and take them, put them prone on the floor, do certain different things like that. So there you go guys, that's basically the introduction to Bushido. I hope you've enjoyed this, and if this has piqued your interest, please watch the next videos coming up. As I mentioned, there'll be a beginner's guide where I talk you through the very base mechanics. I'll be filming some battle reports with some of my friends. I had my first game this morning with my ninjas. I had a ninja off with my friend Lee, so hopefully he's going to be on some of the videos because he's local to me and we get some games in. So please comment, like, share and subscribe. I hope you enjoy this new series. So Bushido, remember the name, have a look on their website, it's Bushido the game. Could just Google it, get them up, have a look at the models, and get playing because it's a fantastic game. I'm really enjoying it so far, and hopefully you can come on this journey with me, and we'll see how we get on. So that's it for now guys, and join me next time. Cheers for now, bye bye. So here we are with the Bushido rulebook. It's a really lovely thick copybook. It's full of lovely art, looking at all of the models, all the areas. So it's a really high quality rulebook, lots of stories. Here is the Jwa Isles where the game is set, so much like Japan, it's lots of islands. And then it goes on to explain, even so much so, the seasons in the setting. We've got measurements, we've got currency, we've got all of these amazing religions. It's got such a strong background to the game. Must have taken ages to sort all this out. It discusses all of the famous events and places, really adds flavour to the game. As you can see, absolutely stunning artwork in here. More stories. All of this is background to fluff out the game, to really get you to buy in and feel the setting here. Look at this for artwork. Famous areas, and then we get on to the factions. So as I've mentioned, or we'll go on to mention, here are the factions. More detail on the factions, some lovely pictures of the models for each faction. The Cult of Yuri, some of my favourite models here. So this is an absolutely gorgeous piece of art. This rulebook alone is great, so really is worth the money. So that's a bit of a look inside the book for you guys.